February 8, 1587. The great hall at Fotheringhay Castle falls silent as a beautiful woman in crimson velvet walks toward the executioner's block. She is Mary, Queen of Scots, once ruler of Scotland and Queen of France, now condemned to die for plotting against her cousin. For 19 years, she has been Elizabeth I's prisoner, trapped in English castles while her youth and kingdom slipped away forever. But today, she will die with the dignity of a queen, refusing to let her enemies see her fear or regret. Her life has been a tragedy of betrayals, by husbands, by nobles, by family, and ultimately by her own cousin Elizabeth. She was beautiful, cultured, and born to rule. Yet every choice she made led her closer to this moment of execution. This is Mary, Queen of Scots, the beautiful monarch whose tragic life became legend, betrayed by everyone she trusted most. Born December 8, 1542, at Linlithgow Palace, Mary became Queen of Scotland just 6 days old when her father James V died. Her father died of grief after Scotland's defeat at the Battle of Solway Moss, leaving an infant girl to rule a kingdom. Scotland was torn between Protestant and Catholic factions, caught between England's aggression and France's alliance that demanded constant political maneuvering to survive. Mary's mother, Mary of Guise, served as regent while the infant queen became a pawn in international politics and religious warfare. England's Henry VIII demanded Mary marry his son Edward, hoping to unite the kingdoms under English control and Protestant religion. When Scotland refused, Henry VIII launched the rough-wooing, burning Scottish towns and killing thousands to force compliance through military terror. Scotland turned to France for protection, and at age 5, Mary was sent to the French court for safety and education. She grew up at the most sophisticated court in Europe, learning French, Latin, music, and poetry, while her homeland suffered English invasions. In 1558, at age 15, Mary married Francis, the Dauphin of France, cementing the Franco-Scottish alliance against English Protestant aggression. She was briefly Queen of France when Francis became king in 1559. But their happiness lasted only a year before tragedy struck. Francis died in December 1560 from an ear infection, leaving 18-year-old Mary a widow without power in French politics. With nothing to keep her in France, Mary returned to Scotland in 1561 to claim her throne in a kingdom transformed by Protestant Reformation. Scotland had embraced Protestantism during her absence, led by the fiery preacher John Knox, who declared women rulers were unnatural and ungodly. Mary was Catholic in a newly Protestant kingdom, foreign in manner and speech, and surrounded by nobles who resented her authority. She tried compromise, allowing Protestant worship while practicing her Catholic faith privately, but religious tensions made peace impossible to achieve permanently. Her cousin Elizabeth I of England viewed Mary with suspicion and jealousy, seeing her as a threat to England's Protestant settlement. Mary had a strong claim to England's throne as Henry VIII's great-niece, making her dangerous to childless Elizabeth's political security. The two queens would never meet, though their fates were intertwined in a deadly dance of politics, religion, and female rivalry. Mary needed to marry again to secure her throne, but her choice of husband would prove the beginning of her ultimate downfall. In 1565, she married Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, her handsome cousin, who shared her claim to the English throne. The marriage seemed politically brilliant, combining their claims to England while strengthening her position in Scotland with a Catholic nobleman. But Darnley was vain, weak, alcoholic, and power-hungry, demanding to be named King of Scotland rather than mere consort. Mary refused to share power equally, enraging Darnley and creating the first crack in their marriage that would widen into catastrophe. Darnley grew jealous of Mary's Italian secretary, David Rizzio, whom he suspected of being her lover, despite no evidence supporting accusations. On March 9, 1566, Darnley and conspirators murdered Rizzio in front of Mary, dragging him from her presence while she was 6 months pregnant. The trauma nearly caused miscarriage, but Mary gave birth to James in June 1566, securing the succession but destroying her marriage forever. She had come to despise Darnley, who had proven himself cowardly, violent, and politically incompetent in ways that endangered her rule. On February 10, 1567, Darnley was found murdered at Kirkhofield, his house destroyed by explosion but his body strangled nearby. Suspicion immediately fell on Mary and James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, a powerful noble who had protected her during previous political crises. 3 months after Darnley's murder, Mary married Bothwell in May 1567, shocking Scotland and destroying her reputation throughout Europe forever. Whether Bothwell kidnapped and raped her or she was complicit remains debated, but the marriage was political suicide regardless of truth. Scottish nobles rebelled against Mary, claiming she had conspired in Darnley's murder and married his killer in scandalous haste, suggesting guilt. She was imprisoned at Lochleven Castle and forced to abdicate in favor of her 1-year-old son James VI in July 1567. Her half-brother, James Stuart, Earl of Monarch, became regent for the infant king, effectively ending Mary's power in Scotland forever. She escaped Lochleven in May 1568 and raised an army to reclaim her throne, but was defeated at the Battle of Langside. Rather than surrender to Scottish nobles who wanted her executed, Mary fled to England seeking protection from her cousin Elizabeth I. It was the worst decision of her life, trading Scottish imprisonment for English captivity that would last 19 years until death. Elizabeth refused to restore Mary to Scotland's throne or acknowledge her innocence, but also couldn't release her without creating political chaos. Mary became Elizabeth's prisoner, moved between various castles under guard while Catholic plots swirled around her as a figurehead for rebellion. She became the focus of Catholic conspiracies to assassinate Elizabeth and place Mary on England's throne. Whether she encouraged them or not, Elizabeth's advisors, led by Francis Walsingham, established an elaborate spy network to monitor Mary's correspondence and trap her in treason. The years of captivity destroyed Mary's health and beauty, but she maintained her dignity and faith despite harsh conditions and isolation. Her captivity lasted nearly 2 decades, far longer than anyone expected, as Elizabeth vacillated between mercy and political necessity toward her cousin. In 1586, Walsingham's agents infiltrated the Babington Plot, a Catholic conspiracy to assassinate Elizabeth and free Mary from captivity. Mary's letters approving the assassination plot were intercepted, providing evidence that Elizabeth's advisors had been seeking for years to eliminate threat. Whether Mary truly endorsed assassination or was entrapped by Walsingham's agents remains debated, but the evidence sealed her fate regardless. She was tried for treason at Fotheringhay Castle in October 1586, facing judges without legal counsel in what amounted to show trial. Mary denied plotting assassination, claiming she had only sought her freedom, not Elizabeth's death, but her own letters condemned her effectively. She was found guilty of conspiring to assassinate the Queen, and Elizabeth reluctantly signed the death warrant in February 1587. Elizabeth claimed later that the warrant was executed without her final approval, but historians believe this was political theater for plausible deniability. On February 8, 1587, Mary faced execution with remarkable courage, forgiving her executioner and praying in Latin for her Catholic faith. She wore a crimson petticoat beneath a black gown, revealing the color of Catholic martyrdom when the outer garments were removed. It took 2 strikes of the axe to sever her head, a botched execution that prolonged her suffering but couldn't diminish her dignity. Her small dog had hidden in her skirts and emerged after death, refusing to leave her body in a scene that moved even. Elizabeth claimed grief at Mary's execution, wearing black and imprisoning the official who had carried out the warrant she herself had signed. But Mary's death solved Elizabeth's greatest political problem, eliminating the Catholic alternative to Protestant England's throne forever and ending decades' uncertainty. Ironically, Mary's son, James VI of Scotland, would inherit England's throne in 1603, fulfilling Mary's ambition through a child succession. James had Mary reburied in Westminster Abbey with honors befitting a queen, partially rehabilitating her reputation decades after death and execution. Mary's life became a romantic tragedy in popular imagination, transforming her from failed politician into martyred beauty betrayed by fate. Her beauty, her marriages, her alleged crimes, and her tragic death made her the ultimate romantic heroine of Scotland's violent history. But the historical Mary was more complex than legend suggests, a capable ruler destroyed by impossible circumstances, bad choices, and treachery. She ruled Scotland during one of history's most turbulent periods, when religious warfare made compromise impossible and survival required ruthlessness often. Her Catholic faith in Protestant Scotland made her vulnerable, while her claim to England's throne made her dangerous to Elizabeth permanently. Her marriages were disasters. Francis died too young. Darnley was murderous fool. Bothwell destroyed her reputation regardless of their relationship's truth. She trusted the wrong people repeatedly. Believing that royal blood and personal charm could overcome political realities and religious hatreds tearing Europe, her imprisonment showed the vulnerability of even queens, who could be held captive for decades without trial or release if politically convenient. Elizabeth's treatment of Mary revealed the ruthless calculations behind Renaissance politics, where family bonds meant nothing compared to political security and survival. Mary's execution was the first legal killing of an anointed monarch in British history, setting a precedent that would doom Charles I. Her legacy lived through James, whose descendants still reign in Britain, making Mary ancestor of every British monarch since 1603 until today. She proved that beauty, culture, and royal blood offered no protection against political enemies who controlled courts, armies, and public opinion. Her story demonstrates how women rulers were held to impossible standards, judged more harshly for failures than their male counterparts ever were. The romantic legend obscures the political reality. Mary was a capable ruler who made catastrophic personal choices in impossible circumstances. She remains history's ultimate tragic queen, beautiful, cultured, and doomed, betrayed by nearly everyone she trusted throughout her turbulent life. Mary, Queen of Scots, died as she lived with courage, dignity, and faith, even as the executioner's axe fell and ended story. Her beautiful, tragic life became legend, inspiring centuries of poetry, plays, and films celebrating the queen who was betrayed by fate.